Episode 2 of Lanterns is on a whole different level. There's a ton of DC lore and references packed in, and we're going to break all of it down in this video. The episode opens with Jon Stewart asleep. Hal Jordan wakes him up by dumping water on him and calls him out for training. Jon asks what the Guardians said about the aliens who died in the last episode. Since Hal thinks he should handle this case alone, he never actually told the Guardians about it. This episode also reveals that everyone who died in the last episode was actually an alien, and it's the Guardians who created the Lantern Corps ring in the first place. They look a bit strange, and it seems that in this series they'll appear in human form based on how the teaser looked. The episode's title comes from an idea that didn't make it to screen exactly as planned. Originally, the opening scene was going to be Hal take Jon up to the top of a water tower and convince him to jump off. Jon trusting Hal enough to leap, hence Trustfall. But when it came time to actually shoot it, the water tower version proved difficult, so they simplified it to Hal just telling Jon to fly right where they were. The title still fit the episode's theme, though, so they kept it. Since Hal is a fighter pilot, flying comes naturally to him, not so for Jon. Hal tells him to concentrate and fly, but instead Jon accidentally creates a bird. That itself isn't the shocking part. What's shocking is that the bird doesn't disappear even after the ring passes from Jon's hand back to Hal's. Hal clearly notices this. By the end, Jon mentions the aliens told him that creating a living bird like this is extremely advanced, borderline impossible. Whether there's a bigger mystery here, like Jon being unusually special, remains to be seen. After the bird incident, the ring's charge runs low, so to teach Jon a lesson, Hal taps the ring against his car and shows him a trick that charges it by 5%. Says they need more charge, Hal sends Jon to his house in Coast City to grab the lantern, feed his pet Earl, bring the bird back alive too. No matter how grounded this show tries to be, moments like this keep reminding us it's still very much a Green Lantern story.
Back at the football field, Hal notices a detector and tests it with a metal part from his car. It doesn't register at all. He tries calling the sheriff's department, but the call doesn't go through, so he uses his ring's remaining 5% charge to fly and locate Sheriff Carey. He finds her by noticing the whole town is deserted, except for a cluster of cars outside one building, the town hall. At the town hall meeting, another detector is present, and it doesn't go off as Hal walks past it either, confirming these aren't standard metal detectors. They're detecting something else entirely. Hal's presence makes everyone uncomfortable since the town is on edge about an alien invasion. Carey tries to defuse things by steering the conversation to whether the town's football game should go on. That's when Carey's husband, Billy McCann, meets Hal and tells him the assault charges against him have been dropped, and he's free to leave town, clearly implying he wants Hal gone. A twist follows. All 4 people who died were aliens, and Hal figures out it was Billy's people who shot them. When Hal starts questioning Billy, Carey tells him to leave. At that moment, Hal gets a call from Jon, and having to communicate over the phone, since Jon needs directions into Hal's house, creates an awkward dynamic between them since normally Hal shuts down Jon's requests easily in person. They fill the silence by slowly learning more about each other. While Jon searches Hal's house, Hal sneaks into the hospital to steal the alien bodies. Hal's house reveals just how famous he is. Photos with Presidents Obama and Bush, and, fun detail, photos with the Harry Potter cast showing he's a huge fan. In his bedroom, Jon finds Hal's suit and asks if he should bring it. Hal says it's not necessary, but it's shown that Jon takes it anyway. Jon finds the box containing the lantern. Activating it requires Hal's voice, and the phrase he uses is, "Mogo doesn't socialize." For Deep CC fans, this is a joke because Mogo is a living planet and one of the Green Lantern Corps members. So the line jokes about how when an entire planet is itself a Green Lantern, the other lanterns don't really hang out with him. Simply put, imagine if Earth gained consciousness and became a Green Lantern itself. That's basically Mogo. There's an entire comic story built around this character. The box is referred to as a pocket dimension. In Green Lantern mythology, lanterns use pocket dimensions to safely store their power lanterns. James Gunn used pocket dimensions in the Superman movie and in Peacemaker, leading to memes about him being obsessed with the concept. But this pocket dimension has nothing to do with Gunn, it's an existing DC concept.
While getting food for Earl, if you looked closely at the box, Hal had written the name as Earl Jordan, suggesting he considers this creature part of his family. It's only when Jon visits Earl's room that we learn Earl is actually a creature, not an ordinary pet. Apparently, the idea of giving Hal a pet started small for the creators, but grew into something more interesting the more they thought about what kind of pet a space-traveling Green Lantern would realistically have. Why not a dog or cat? Because Hal travels planet to planet and has met plenty of strange creatures in his life. Earl is a nod to that. Hal brings the stolen bodies to the football field to test the detector against them, confirming as he suspected that it really is an alien detector. Meanwhile, Jon is captured by a group investigating the Manhunters. It turns out this group and the group that died earlier are the same, and all of them are aliens. Their leader is credited as Anton. According to Anton, the Manhunters are hiding in Roswell and his group knows it. They entered Roswell to hunt them down but got caught by McCann instead and now can't get back in, so Anton explains everything to Jon and gives him 48 hours to capture the Manhunters. Otherwise, Anton's group will storm Roswell themselves and destroy the whole town. They don't trust Hal, which is why they're asking Jon instead. Digging into DC lore, Anton's backstory, his home planet being wiped out, closely resembles the origin of the villain Atrocitus. The Manhunters destroyed an entire planet, Sector 666, leaving only 5 survivors, Atrocitus among them. He watched his wife, children, and his whole planet die at the Manhunters' hands. He renamed himself Atrocitus, and he and the other survivors turned against the Guardians since it was the Guardians who created the Manhunters in the first place, before the Green Lantern Corps even existed, making them ultimate ultimately responsible. This group receives red rings, making Atrocitus the first Red Lantern. Just as green rings run on willpower, red rings run on rage. Beyond green and red, there are 9 total ring colors in the DC universe. We'll cover the Yellow Lantern at the end of this video, and a full breakdown of every ring color in a separate video. That said, even though the story matches Atrocitus' comic origin closely, this specific character doesn't seem to actually be Atrocitus. He looks to be an original character created for the show. Also, don't confuse Manhunters with Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter is a hero, one of the 7 founding members of the Justice League.
After being maced or shot during the trespassing incident, Hal ends up in the hospital, but since he was trespassing, the sheriff legally couldn't do more. When Hal wakes, the sheriff asks about Sinestro since Hal was saying the name in his sleep. Hal refuses to talk about it, but from what we hear, Sinestro was a lantern who tried to destroy the entire Corps, was set up by one of the Guardians, and was ultimately taken down by Hal himself. Sinestro also appears in the end credits scene. Hal notices the sheriff's hand in a cuff and says something like, "In the name of Tom Osborn's honor, please take this off." He later makes a promise on the same name when told to leave town. Tom Osborn is a real-life legendary Nebraska college football coach, a fitting reference given the setting. When Hal signs out of the hospital, there's no other entry log, and even the equipment looks suspiciously new. The sheriff brushes it off as small town, but it's clear something is off, and McCann seems connected to it. A big detail, when Hal asks what city they're in, the sheriff says Gotham, and in the previous episode, the sheriff was overheard on a call saying, "Tell Bar I said hey," theorized to be Barbara Gordon, meaning the sheriff may have been talking to Jim Gordon, Batman's ally familiar to anyone who's seen Nolan's trilogy. Barbara Gordon is also Batgirl. Another connection to Sheriff Carey's full name is Carey Kane. In the comics, Bruce Wayne's mother, Martha, comes from the Kane family, and Batwoman, Bruce's cousin, is named Kate Kane. So there's a real possibility of a Batman family connection here. After meeting Joey, John returns to Hal's motel and hands over the lantern and suit. Hal places his ring in the lantern, recites the oath, and recharges it. Where did the Green Lantern concept even come from? In 1940, comic artist Martin Nodell was under pressure to create a new superhero with no ideas coming to him. Walking past a railway signal one day, he noticed green lights meant go and red lights meant stop, danger. That sparked the idea for Green Lantern, originally a character named Alan Scott, a railroad engineer who essentially found a magic lamp in the form of a green light and ring, completely unrelated to space. It wasn't until 1959 that test pilot Hal Jordan received the dying alien Abin Sur's advanced power ring, expanding the character into the full intergalactic Green Lantern Corps mythology. Hal tells John that McCann is hiding something and notices alien bodies loaded in John's car. Instead of getting angry, he listens as John explains about the Manhunters and the 48-hour deadline. Originally, the writers planned for John to keep this secret from Hal, but it worked better dramatically to have John share it. Hal is visibly shocked at the mention of Manhunters. John suggests the aliens don't trust Hal and speculates the Guardians themselves might be hiding the Manhunters. Hal doubts the Guardians would do that, but suggests Abin Sur might have brought a Manhunter with him when he came to Earth. This reframes Abin Sur's story. Instead of being possessed by Parallax, as in the Ryan Reynolds movie, in this series, he arrives at Earth possessed by a Manhunter. It's a full-circle moment for Hal, prompting him to suit up and head to space. Good thing John brought that suit after all. Hal arrives at a prison on another planet. The creators originally considered a rock-based prison design, but scrapped it for feeling too Game of Thrones, opting instead for a metallic floating prison. There, Hal meets Sinestro, the name he'd been muttering in his sleep. Sinestro is Hal's former trainer and mentor. When asked about the Manhunters, Sinestro calls them the second greatest threat Hal will face, implying Sinestro himself is the first. As established earlier, Sinestro was a Green Lantern who turned against the Corps and even took down one of the Guardians, which is why Hal is the one who imprisoned him. Sinestro also created the Yellow Ring, powered by fear, just as the Green Ring runs on willpower and the Red Ring on rage. Interested in rings? Let us know. We'll cover every ring color and how each one works in a dedicated video. Let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.